Jungles are extraordinary places. Although they cover less than 7% of the Earth's surface and are disappearing at a devastating rate of 12 million hectares each year, tropical forests are home to approximately 50% of all living things on Earth. Of course, these jungles still hold their secrets. There are creatures yet to be discovered, vast expanses of dense landscapes yet to be explored, tribes yet to be documented, and ancient treasures buried underground. Let's look at some of the mysteries that have been discovered in the dense jungle. The spheres of Costa Rica. Costa Rica may be famous for many reasons, but you may not know that it is also popular for having a large collection of almost perfectly round stones. To learn more about these stone spheres that can be found all over the Costa Rican landscape, we must go back to the 1930s. At that time, the United Fruit Company was looking for new land to start banana plantations in western Costa Rica, near the Pacific Ocean. But when the workers began to clear the dense jungles, they found something strange: stone spheres. It doesn't sound too strange, but let me explain it to you. Some of these spheres were only a few inches in diameter, but others were huge. In fact, the largest spheres measured up to 2 meters in diameter and weighed up to 16 tons. But where do these spheres come from? Or do they even come from this world? It was obvious that these spheres were man-made, because rocks did not exist in such uniform shapes. The locals quickly began to wonder, and many myths developed to explain the stone spheres. For example, some believed that they were brought by aliens. Others believed that they were related to the lost continent of Atlantis. The scientific study of the stones began in the early 1940s. Since then, around 300 stone spheres have been found throughout the country. Although many of the stones are not perfectly round, they are surprisingly smooth, and scientific measurements revealed that many of them were close to perfect spheres. But the most difficult question to answer is, why were these stones made, and what was their purpose? Nobody knows it for sure. Eels hunt in a herd. Electric eels emerge from the riverbeds of South America, in the Amazon jungle, to attack their prey with up to 860 volts of electricity, enough to kill a person. Now, scientists have revealed that these snake-like fish don't always hunt alone. In fact, they hunt in packs, similar to wolves, killer whales, and some species of tuna. This finding, the first among electric eels, is about to launch new studies to investigate when this social predation among animals evolved. Douglas Bastos, a biologist at the National Institute for Amazon Research who first observed a group attack in 2012, was shocked. The eels, which can grow as large as a broom and weigh up to 20 kilograms, typically hunt alone at night, targeting individual resting fish. He noted that this behavior is not common, not just for freshwater fish, but especially for electric eels. Bastos observed the attack on an expedition while searching for endangered marine creatures in northern Brazil. 2 years later, he returned for a closer look, camping alone in the middle of the Amazon, 5 days by boat from the nearest city. He filmed hundreds of electric eels in groups of 10, repeatedly attacking small tetra fish in the Uruguay River, a tributary of the Amazon River in northern Brazil. That must have been quite a show. The Nazi hideout. A mysterious place, located in the national park of the province of Misiones, Argentina, is a secret refuge that is believed to have been used during World War II. It was discovered in 2015 by a team of archaeologists who examined 3 ruined buildings in the Argentine jungle. Among the artifacts discovered were a porcelain plate labeled "Made in Germany" and 5 Nazi-era German coins. According to expedition team leader Daniel Shavelson, the small cluster of buildings was one of many looted sites by the Nazis during World War II. The Nazis were working on a cover-up project to provide safe havens for top leaders, and when things went wrong, they would build these inaccessible sites in the middle of deserts, mountains, cliffs, or in the middle of jungles, like the one investigators discovered. The buildings were clearly designed with safety in mind, with some walls measuring up to 3 meters thick. It is said that they were used at some point, although it is highly unlikely and the reason is highly doubtful. At that time, the president of Argentina, Juan Perón, had an open-door policy that allowed the Nazis to resettle in the country. Archaeologists point out that if Adolf Hitler, the man who engineered the Holocaust, was allowed to live happily and freely in Buenos Aires, the chances of other leaders opting for life in the jungle were pretty slim. The Panamanian golden frog. Finding a frog in the jungle may not seem unusual, but the Panamanian golden frog is quite special. According to The Guardian, the world was first introduced to the little golden frog in the 2006 documentary. The frog was not only poisonous, but also had a clever way of communicating through body language. Researchers filming the frogs for the BBC found that the areas where the frogs lived in mountain streams and deep in the jungle were extremely noisy. Therefore, these small amphibians developed a complex system of waving their arms, moving their legs, and tapping their feet to communicate. Isn't that cool? Unfortunately, according to the Smithsonian, they are critically endangered. While the documentary was being filmed, the spread of a fungus was decimating frog populations in the area. Fortunately, the researchers were able to save a small number of the frogs and are working in hopes of not only finding a cure for the disease that is driving them to extinction, but also increasing their numbers and repopulating the wild. The fascinating Pink Lake. Imagine the following scenario: it's 1802 and Matthew Flinders, a British navigator and cartographer aboard HMS Investigator, lands on what is now known as Middle Island in the Research Archipelago off the south coast of Australia. It's time to start exploring. Flinders makes his way through the dense jungle and reaches the highest peak. From there, he looks out over the landscape and is surprised to see a bright pink lake. While he probably wasn't familiar with strawberry milkshakes, it's exactly what the color makes him think of. Later, he described the forest as pink in color, which is also pretty close. When he and his crew reached the lake, which was also very salty, they were able to resupply their entire ship with only the salt that had crystallized along the shores. Flinders named the lake Hilter after a crew member who died while the ship was docked on the island. It turns out that the color of the lake is affected by supersalinity. Because the water is so salty, the most common bacteria and microscopic organisms that can survive there have a pigment in their cell membranes that is responsible for the pink color of the water. This explains why the lake is that same color. The lost gold of the Incas. The history of the lost gold of the Incas dates back to the 16th century, when the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro demanded a gold ransom from the Inca king Atahualpa. The Incas began to collect the ransom, but Pizarro impatiently executed the king. The ransom is said to have been hidden in a secret cave somewhere, and there have been various reports of its discovery over the years. One of the first reports was about 50 years later, when a Spaniard named Valverde claimed to have obtained money by saying that his Inca wife's family had shown him the location of the treasure. However, the instructions on how to find it, as well as the guide and the map, disappeared. It wasn't until 1886 that a treasure hunter named Blake claimed to have found the treasure. He described human figures, birds and animals made of life-size gold, gold jewelry and vases filled with emeralds, as well as incredibly beautiful works of goldwork. Blake took what he could carry and left with the intention of returning, but he disappeared on his way back to New York. All attempts to locate it and find the missing gold have so far failed. Blake's fate and the possibility of someone else finding the lost Inca gold remain a mystery. Which one did you find most interesting? Thank you for staying until the end of this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more content like this. Until next time.